So let's do this.
Take it from the top.
Taking it from the top. Welcome to 6-Minute Increments, where we look at and explore the relationship between business and law. My name is Brett Farrow.
I'm Beth Cordello.
And we're here at 6-Minute Increments trying to help you understand how to better interact with your legal counsel, how to get the most out of that legal counsel. And one of the recommendations I've had for years is spending some time understanding what motivates your legal counsel to ever get into this profession in the first place. And in that regard, we have with us today...
I'm Jordan Lander. I am a second-year associate at Polano and Farrow.
How are you today, Jordan?
I'm doing okay.
So the purpose of this is to actually explore a little bit about what motivated you to go to law school in the first place.
Yeah, so I guess my experience may be a little bit unique to some people, but I grew up in the hospital system. My parents were in medicine. They had us in training, so the hospital was my playground, essentially. And
you didn't play with the sharp objects, did you?
I actually did. You should ask my father about his desk. And so while I was there, I kind of got curious in how the systems work, and not from a standpoint of like the regulatory side from a young age, but more of just I would take things apart. I would ask who people were. I would ask what their roles were. And that just kind of grew as I went through my studies into college and law school.
So, I think it's important to clarify, what area of law do you currently practice in?
So I'm actually a healthcare attorney, and I do some transactions and some regulatory work. And it's really understanding how the systems work is what drives me from day to day.
What did you think about law school? What did you like? What did you not like?
And did it prepare you for the actual practice of law?
Good questions. So I honestly, from a class perspective, I think I had expected a lot of more Socratic method, more of calling on students to not just recite cases, but to also interpret cases. And so when I had those classes where they still stuck to that, it really pushed me to kind of look at the hidden message and develop an argument based on that. So my constitutional law professor, he really... I guess it was Con Law 2. He really pushed that home. And that was, I guess, a highlight for me. And then once I got past my first and second years, we could really kind of dive into those specialty classes. We could take health law and we could take...
In those classes, did you still stick with that Socratic method? Because I think that's one of the things that I've noticed over the years has changed greatly about law school, is that Socratic method forced you to constantly make arguments. In your second and third years, did you experience that still? And maybe you can explain a little bit about what the Socratic method is.
Yeah, so I think as I got into the kind of like more nuanced classes, the Socratic method was kind of hit or miss. It wasn't as common. It was more about... Did you read the regulation? Did you understand it? What was the case history behind it? What was the legislative history? It was more of the old school professors that would really drive it home, where you would have to study the cases. You didn't know if you were getting called on, and you had to make an argument about a decision. It wasn't just reciting the facts. It wasn't just reciting the decisions. You had to make an argument about the reason why. And I will never forget, there was one class, I think it was one of my civil procedure classes, and he was old school. He was really an old school professor, and I didn't do well on his test. And, it was because I was reciting the facts and the decision, and I realized that I had to change how I looked at my case books going forward.
Now, as you get into the practice of law, what do you think is the benefit or non-benefit of that kind of learning or education that you can now employ in your day-to-day practice with healthcare clients?
I think it's really the concept of thinking on your toes, being able to make an argument when a client asks you a question, and not just regurgitating the statute or the regulation. It's
Because they don't understand what that means.
no, they don't.
That's why they come to us.
Putting it into kind of human English for them and making an argument on why they should do something and why they should go a certain way.
What do you think is the biggest surprise as you've gotten into your legal practice that you were not anticipating?
The biggest surprise. Oh, that is a good question.
Or maybe there were no surprises.
You were perfectly prepared.
Well, we all know that's probably not true. More of the business management aspects. I think working here at Polano and Farrow, being exposed to just how to manage a business from start to finish. I wish I had more exposure like that in law school, because having the whole picture of how the system runs, I think...
How the sausage is made isn't pretty, is it?
No. Knowing how a system runs from start to finish, it really causes you to appreciate the different roles that everybody plays.
Let me ask you this, Jordan. We call this podcast 6-Minute Increments because we bill our lives away at 6-minute increments. How do you feel about billing? What are the challenges you've had? Talk to us about that, because that's a big part of a lawyer's life. A lot of people don't know that, but we spend a lot of time
Dealing with time.
And billing that time and trying to bill it appropriately and fairly. What are your thoughts on that? And
it's tough. I have a lot of clients who don't understand that we don't know everything right away. We have to do research. We have to do legal research.
Well, the law changes too.
Right.
I mean, so even if you knew it yesterday, if the law changes, you might not know it today.
right.
Yeah, so the time it takes to kind of go out and look into those things, it takes time, it takes effort. I wish I could know everything. That would be nice. But unfortunately, we can't, and we have to put in the effort to understand those changes, understand the why, and that's really what they're paying us for. And when you get someone who challenges you on that, it's an interesting dichotomy.
Do you feel that it is easier or harder to have that conversation with clients up front, after the fact? Don't like having the conversation? Does it depend on the client? What's your experience with that?
I think it depends on the client. Some of the smaller businesses, I've tried to get into the habit of asking them what they're willing to pay for and what questions they want to prioritize, and starting to kind of give them an estimate of how much time it will take to get them an answer.
How about the issues, though, that arise when you start into a topic, you identify that there's maybe more research that's needed, there's ethical questions that, jeopardize your license if you don't look into them, but it goes beyond maybe the scope of what the client was asking for originally. How do you deal with that?
So typically, either an email to just kind of say, hey, I found something new, or can we have a call to discuss? Because I think being upfront that this is going beyond what I had initially thought is a good way to approach it.
I've always liked, Beth, your tip for all lawyers when it gets more than how many sentences go from the email to a call?
2 or 3. I am a big proponent of picking up a phone and actually talking to somebody. I think oftentimes a lot more can be accomplished that way. Yeah.
And it's more time efficient,
Right.
Possibly.
Absolutely.
I think also by picking up the phone, you can see their reactions and you can see if they're understanding it and whether are their eyes glazing over or are they actually understanding what you're saying.
Right.
If there's one thing that you think that viewers and listeners alike should take away from this about Jordan, what do you think is the number one thing for people to know about in your career? What motivates you to do this job?
I mean, I think it goes back to the start. I think I'm always invested in making health systems better and making it more clear and finding a better path forward. I think that's been my driving motivator since I was young.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Well, because we don't want to overbill people, and we
Yes.
know that this is 3 attorneys sitting at a table,
And we're over 6 minutes.
We're over 6 minutes. So
Clearly.
with that, we will conclude today. We thank you for watching, and we will talk to you in another increment in the future.
Bye.
Bye.